And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the AFC South Roundtable, presented by Roundtable Sports and also powered by BetUS. Guys, if you guys are interested in getting in on the sports gambling game, there's a lot of fun stuff that's coming up, man. I mean, right now on BetUS, we got official college football playoff spreads. That's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, the regular season in the NFL is closing up, and no matter what team of fan you are, if you're a Jags and Titans fan and your season is done, or if you're a Texans and Colts fan and you're kind of looking forward to potentially making a playoff spot, especially if you're a Colts fan, there's spreads on every single NFL game that's going to keep you guys up to date and having fun over there. So if you guys are interested in getting in on that, BetUS is offering you a promo code of a 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000 using promo code YouTube150. That's 150% on your first deposit and 125 on your second and third. So guys, we had one game in the AFC South, a total of 1 touchdown scored and a total of 16 points scored in this division. And look, this was essentially the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight, where a pretty lousy game, pretty lousy fight, but somebody has to win, and the Jaguars survive. So we're going to go ahead and bring in the loser of the match. We got Titans Rossi. Titans Rossi, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? It's just one thing after the other this season. I know we're going to get into it. I mean, it's literally the only game, and it was in the AFC South, which was an awful, terrible game, but I'm hanging in there, man.
Yeah, so now the Jaguars and Titans are each 3-10. We are vying for draft spot because, look, the Jaguars mathematically eliminated the Titans in Nashville. So I guess a good feeling. But now that we're at Tuesday, we're looking at the draft spot. The Jaguars dropped from number 1 to number 5 overall on Tankathon. So, if you're going to beat somebody, at least I guess it's against a division opponent. But we'll go ahead and bring in, speaking of a guy who's potentially fighting for a playoff spot, they may have a losing record right now, but the rest of the road is pretty easy for the Indianapolis Colts. We have Derek Larger from the Bring the Juice podcast. What's going on, man?
Dude, listen, I tried so hard to watch that game on Sunday. Believe me, I did. But I couldn't bear it any longer, man. After the first couple minutes, I was just like, God, what is wrong with me? And what is my life become having to watch the Jaguars and the Titans play? My God.
Hey, I'm right there with you. If I didn't cover the Jaguars, I might have found an excuse out of that one, especially during the holiday season where there's plenty of stuff going on in Florida. We got nice, beautiful 60, 70-degree weather. It's all good vibes down here. And lastly, we'll go ahead and bring in Ruben. Ruben, all the Houston Texans had to do down the road is go 2-2, and you guys are once again champions of the AFC South. We got Ruben from the 713 Houston Sports YouTube channel. What's going on, Ruben?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Happy to be back. Love you boys. The bye week was fun. Got some rest, and we have some playoff implications this week, boys. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, so with that said, we got some different things coming up this show. Usually we like to go around and, kind of recap every game, but only one game this weekend, and there's really not too much to talk about. I remember recapping the game. I was like, man, I don't really know what to talk about here. It was just a really, really bad game, to say the least. But we do always like to start with the injury report. We can start off with Titans Rossi. Did you guys experience any injuries this past weekend?
Yeah, our kicker is hurt, which kind of stinks because he's one of the few players on the Titans who actually scores points. So he's been hurt, and we've brought in the legend Braden Narveson, who kicked like a 60-yard field goal in the preseason. He actually started for the Packers, but he missed like 5 field goals, so they axed him. But apparently he's back in in camp. And also, let's see here, Leroy Watson, who was like a backup tackle, Kenneth Murray, the starting linebacker, and Jerome Baker, all questionable as far as that goes.
Yeah, and I know on the Jaguars end, the only real injury that the Jaguars had was that Anton Harrison was actually the Jaguars starting right tackle, was a scratch, actually an unhealthy scratch because he was dealing with an illness. So it wasn't, injury related. It was illness related. So he did not play, but luckily Cole Van Lanen actually filled in pretty good for him. And also the Jaguars safety, Darnell Savage, was evaluated for concussion. He did not return, so that's kind of what's going on with the Jaguars. And look, the Colts and the Texans each had rests. Ruben, do you have any updates on maybe some potential players that you're looking to come back this next coming week?
Yeah, so the Houston Texans are getting back linebacker Christian Harris. We haven't seen him all year. Last time we saw him, he was in training camp and has dealt with a calf injury this entire season. I do expect him to be rusty. But at one point last year, towards the end of the year, Christian Harris was playing damn good football for D'Amico Ryans. Is that going to be the case this season? Not too sure. Going to be rusty, and it's going to take some time, getting back into NFL shape. But in terms of depth, this come at a better time. Azeez Al-Shaair suspended 3 games, and now here comes potentially Christian Harris playing some meaningful football for you. We also got guard Kenyon Green returning to practice. Now, this is interesting because once he got hurt against the New York Jets, they said he's out for the year. Now we are hearing he is back to practice, so I wonder if there's going to be some shakeup in the Houston Texans offensive line. No negative injury news, but we got 2 guys coming back.
All right, Derek, let's hear from you.
As far as like potentially getting some people back, I know that Ryan Kelly is potentially coming back for the center position. The biggest one that takes into account is Josh Downs. Do not know if he is going to be back for this game this next week. The Colts have kept that pretty under wraps. I don't think that we'll know until we see whether or not he practices at all this week. Obviously, the bye week coming when it did was very pivotal for the type of injury that he suffered in New England. He certainly tried to come back in the game, which made me think that, he could potentially play through this if they did enough treatment with him. Maybe he'll be able to still make an impact out there. We really, really need him because, the game that we got coming up could potentially be our season. If he doesn't get to play, this offense might be down one of their best weapons.
Yeah, and absolutely. Look, the Colts are in a spot where they don't have many tough opponents left. This next coming game against the Broncos will be big for them. And if they can win that, man, they have a real opportunity in front of them. But they're going to have to be damn near perfect if they want to get in. So you're going to need all your firepower available. So with that said, we can go ahead and talk about the Jaguars-Titans game. I mean, look, and if you guys have been listening to me on the show or even following me on YouTube, I've been all about Team Tank. Look, when you're mathematically eliminated like the Jaguars are, I am looking at 2025 because there's nothing you do here but win some meaningless games and hurt your draft spot. And the Jaguars are holding the number 1 overall pick. They had a bunch of different tiebreakers. But am I going to be mad about a win against the Tennessee Titans? I normally wouldn't. But it kind of depends on the style of the win. And I made this point that if you look at the Bills the other day, the Bills lost 45-42. If I were the Rams, if the Jaguars were to beat the Titans 45-42, I would have been all about it because I want to score some points. You know what I mean? But this win was a cheap win because the Jaguars went the first 3 quarters without scoring a single point. Okay, they didn't score until the 4th quarter, and they got 1 measly touchdown. The Jaguars should have lost this game because, honestly, Will Levis, I don't know what his vision is doing, but, man, it's like he didn't want to throw a touchdown. There were so many opportunities for him to take over, and he just unfortunately didn't for the Jaguars' sake. So, yeah, the Jaguars, I guess, improved to 3-10, and now the Titans dropped to 3-10. The Jaguars are still ahead of them on Tankathon. Jaguars at number 5, and I believe the Titans are at number 6. So the Jaguars do have the tiebreaker. Tiebreaker comes down to strength of schedule. A lot of people think it's head-to-head. It is not. But, with this game, a lot of rookies showed out for the Jaguars. Brian Thomas Jr., who had no receiving yards in the first half, they finally started targeting him in the second half. He finished the game with 8 receptions for 86 yards. He is the Jaguars' most explosive player on offense, and it's just weird how they go away from him so often this season. And Mac Jones threw 2 picks, but his completion percentage was pretty high. It was just it was a cheap win, and you beat the Titans, who just aren't a very good team. Like, you beat a rival, and usually when you beat a rival, it's really, really fun. But I'm not seeing any smack talk between Jaguars and Titans fans. I think both of them are in the same mode of like, yeah, we stink. Let's just finish the season and move on to next season. So Yeah, the Jaguars win a 10-6 stinker. Titans, Rossi, let's kind of hear your thoughts about this pillow fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of like video coming out about like the attendance at the game. Like it was absolutely awful. Like there was I think it wasn't even 65% full. You know, I doubt if it was even that much. I mean, it looked less than half, and it was just I don't know. It was just one of those games. Like you knew going into it, this is going to be a crap game. Like this is going to be a crap game. But I honestly didn't think it was going to be that bad. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was going to be a little more entertaining. You know, typically both these teams they go at each other regardless of the record. But I think honestly too, it was one of the worst Titans losses. I mean, there's been some grave losses. You're talking about the Super Bowl, you're talking about big losses. But as far as like being down in the dumps as an organization, as a franchise, this was one of the worst losses I've ever witnessed. I mean, there's a lot of people screaming for Brian Callahan's head right now. There's a lot of people who still support him. You know what I mean? It's just the way things have gone down this season. And, you know, Jaguars fans before the season, like Calvin Ridley has done a lot of good things for the Titans, but he's somebody that just really irritates me. And I feel like that Jaguars fans probably felt the same way that we are now, and they tried to tell us. It's like Calvin Ridley does things that are really great. He does some amazing things on the field. The way he can stop on a dime and separate and things like that. But he also does some of the most boneheaded, dumb things. And I'm like, dude, we're paying this guy so much money. And that play at the end of the game where he just runs out of bounds, I get it. Like his momentum was leading him that way. But there was still an opportunity to at least take a step forward, even if you weren't going to get the first down. Like it was insane to me. And there's been drops, there's been wrong routes that he's run, and it's just indicative of the entire Titan season right now. But when you got a guy like that and you're paying him that much money, I just feel like there's a lot of players on this team that are not putting forth that type of effort that is needed in it, and it showed during this game. And Calvin Ridley's just one on the list.
Yeah, no, and I definitely hear you on Calvin Ridley. He's a maddening player because you can see all the stuff that he can do, but I don't know. It's just sometimes when you really, really need him to make that play, he just doesn't make it. And like he can make some of the layups, but if there's anything that requires a little bit more, I guess, football IQ, I don't know what the word is for. There's just something missing there, and
Yeah.
it frustrated a lot of Jaguar fans last year. I know we were trying to re-sign him, we didn't. We ended up with Brian Thomas Jr. and honestly, it worked out really well in the Jaguars' favor because Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. But yeah, we definitely feel you on Calvin Ridley. So we can go ahead and get the other AFC South host thoughts on this game. We'll start with Derek.
I mean, I don't know if I can really put it into words better than you guys can. I mean, I didn't watch a ton of this because I was off at a work Christmas party, but you know, it is it's funny because again, like Levis was putting up those them Anthony Richardson numbers, you know, 19 of 32, 168 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. You know, it's just a whole lot of nothing. And, you know, Mac Jones, again, coming in clutch when he doesn't have to be. It's like Mac Jones is trying to remind NFL teams that he can still be accurate and that he should try to get out of Jacksonville and try to fight for a job somewhere. I don't know what he's trying to do. Obviously didn't get any touchdowns in regards to that. Had those 2 interceptions, but hey, I mean, I'll commend you for at least being 23 of 31 for 220 yards. I mean, at least you kept the offense moving a little bit. Yeah, I mean, what a crap show this game was. I mean, 2 field goals, one in the first quarter, one in the third quarter, and then a field goal and a touchdown in the fourth quarter by one and only team. So, I mean, this was This was kind of funny. It's funny to look back at the stats again. I didn't get to watch all of it, but yeah, it was kind of funny to see just how unentertaining this game was. I thought people thought maybe this might have some kind of entertainment value to it, but I can see why fans didn't want to come to watch this.
Yeah, we'll hear from you, Ruben.
Yeah, this is just a tough one. On Jacksonville's side, I mean, what more could they do? They didn't try to win this game. You see the 2 interceptions from Mac Jones, barely anything on the ground, just 55 yards from Mr. Bigsby. This is what we've expected from Jacksonville without T-Law. When I look at Tennessee, I mean, come on, what are we doing here? We were talking about, Will Levis putting together some solid back-to-back weeks, and you're thinking he goes and takes advantage of a Jacksonville's offense. That's not the case. They get into the red zone. They use all 4 downs. They go for it on 4th and goal, and Will Levis has 2 people open. He's covered by 1 guy, and he throws it to the to the Jaguar. That's gonna try to make an incredible catch to get it, and he was covered when another tight end is just right in front of him, wide open. Will Levis might not be the guy. The reaction to that moment was insane from all of Titans County, but Jacksonville definitely did not try to win this game. Tennessee was just really that bad, and it's just going to be a slippery slope the rest of the season.
So, Tynes Rossi, I'm curious, is there any, because I know we're kind of on Will Levis watch right now, especially as the season concludes, because Titans will have a top pick. I mean, right now, I think they're number 6 overall, and, obviously there's some evaluations going on. Do you feel like the temperature is getting even hotter on Will Levis, and do you feel like he'll be the week 1 starter in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, right now as a Titans fan, that's all you had to look forward to is to see if Will Levis can be the guy. That's all there is at this moment. And that's how sad, how sad is that? Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, what Ruben was bringing up, the missing Chig Okonkwo wide freaking open on that play. It was a literal designed play. I'm sure they've practiced that play a million times. I think Jeffrey Simmons was even in the game that play. And the play was designed to get Chig open or another tight end, as far as that goes. So okay, I'm supposed to go to this read or that read. There's only really 2 options. Either one's going to be open, both's going to be open, both's not going to be open. One of the it's so simple. Maybe I say it's simple because I'm sitting on the couch, but it seems so simple when you're sitting there watching it. But I could go on and on about Will Levis. I could complain about him. I could say some good things. But dude, it's just so up and down with him. To me, the guy is not the future. On X today, I made a poll, and it's so weird. I made a poll on YouTube and X. Is he the guy? Has he done enough to be the starter next season? On YouTube, which we have 18,000 plus subscribers on YouTube. I put it on the community post. I think a couple hundred voted, but 60-something% said no on YouTube. On X, 68% said he has done enough to continue on. It's weird, the dynamic between X and YouTube. Why is it such a drastic thing?
Well, I think on YouTube, if you're still watching Jaguars and Titans on YouTube, you're dedicated.
You're diehard.
You're diehard.
And there's always that one social media network that every fan base, it's like the cesspool of the degenerates, the stupid ones, the ones that just don't know anything about football.
What is it in Indianapolis?
Talk about it like they do. And Colts Facebook is that one.
Oh,
okay. Colts Facebook.
Don't get me started on Facebook, dude. Facebook is such a bad place for ball. I mean, you have 70-year-old ladies telling you what's wrong with this team, and I'm like, all right, ma'am, okay, Miss Mary, I can't really
go back to the Baltimore Colts, with Johnny Unitas.
But hey guys, don't talk about our parents like that.
Right.
What sucks too, being a Titans fan and being in this situation is right now we're probably going to win one more game. Like the Titans are going to screw up and win a game somehow, right? And it's going to end up putting them at like the 7th or 8th pick, like typical. And they're not going to be able to get the quarterback that, like, you know, deserves to be a top 3 type of pick because they're picking too late. I personally don't want Cam Ward. I think I don't know. I just don't want the guy. Like, I think he would be the quarterback that would be available. I think Sanders is going to be the first to go, Cam Ward the second. I don't want Cam Ward, right? Like, but that's what sucks about the Titans situation, because there's no free agents out there that are really worth like spending the money on in the quarterback situation. You could go after Sam Darnold, but who really wants Sam Darnold when you're trying to build, like, okay, maybe a bridged quarterback, but like next year, 2026, there's the QB market in the draft is a lot better. You got Arch Manning, there's a couple other guys. Like, I mean, you're looking at a possible tank scenario for the Titans next season too, to be able to get the guy you want.
Yeah, and this is why I always reiterate to people. It's like, dude, when you are out of it, who cares about winning games? This was such a meaningless game because, of course, like the only good thing this does is that when you pull up overall records, yeah, the Jaguars are going to take this one against this game when it comes to overall matchups is the same as if they play them and both teams are 11-0, you know. But like, dude, you want the top draft pick, and you know the Titans are in a situation where they may want to get a quarterback. The Jaguars are in a situation where I want to clean house, and I hope that, you know, when we try to hire a new GM, the number 1 overall pick makes the job a lot more attractive than the number 5 or number 6 overall pick. And it just gives you so much more just leverage, and gives you so much more just freedom to do what you want to do. Do you want to take the best non-quarterback there? Do you want to move back and gather up a bunch of picks? You can do all that. But if you're drafting, if the Jaguars win like, you know, 1 or 2 more games, they might have like number 8 overall pick. And that's just, you're going to get a decent player, but you're not getting a blue chip. And you're just going to, I mean, you're going to get a good player, like I said, but man, it's just, the odds go so much more down if you're going to get a truly elite guy. Then you're down in every other round too. So that's just how it is. Want to get to a couple of super chats. We had Paul throw in a couple donations. He says, "Tough break getting a win. UCF sucks for draft order." And yeah, I've been saying this whole entire time, let's tank. I think since we were like 2-6, I've just been like, all right, let's tank. Let's lose games. Paul threw another donation in here. Every player the Titans signed, my fellow Colts fans were so pissed they didn't come to Indy. I'm relieved the Colts passed on all the free agents. Do you think that's a player issue or a Tennessee Titans issue?
It's mostly a Titans issue, because I mean, think about it, like from the aspect of who the Titans actually signed. Like, I mean, outside of maybe a player or two here and there, like that defense that they put together with the free agents they brought in, that was a really good defense. I mean, again, it's not great now, but obviously the Titans don't have anything to fight for right now. So clearly they're not playing as hard, or there just isn't as many aspirations. But yeah, I mean, they put together a really good roster with a couple of things. But the problem is you still have questions for your quarterback. Your offensive line is still suspect. You don't have a lot of great weapons for your young quarterback to try to throw to. And you don't have 100% certainty that the coach you have is actually the answer going forward. So the problem is it's not the roster that they built. It's the fact that in some of the most important pieces of the Tennessee Titans organization, there are still big question marks. And until you figure that out, your team is not going to consistently find a way to succeed.
Right.
Yeah, interesting take. And look, if you guys want to steer the conversation and start any conversations here, super chat will guarantee that we read your question. We got another one from Leon. He says, "No point in the Titans drafting a quarterback until we know if Callahan can't coach. I'd rather tank next season and then get the new head coach, draft his QB in 2026. And yeah, this is what I've been curious about. Is Callahan truly the head coach of the future for the Tennessee Titans? I don't know if they make a move this year. Maybe next year, if it's going to be another down year, they can still evaluate him. But then, maybe go through another rebuilding year. Then all of a sudden, maybe in 2026, they're ready to attack. Titans Ross, do you have any comments on this question?
Man, just tired of losing. But no, I mean, it's getting to me, man. Like it's
And you guys had a
hard.
long run of like good seasons too, man.
We did. Like we had some good seasons there. I mean, we had
you
a
had
Super
Vrabel.
Bowl caliber
Vrabel.
type of team. Yeah, I mean, when Vrabel had that team with Derrick Henry and AJ, and when
Because they were
Tannehill
tough.
was just
Because your team
they
was
were
tough.
tough.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and Tannehill was smoking. That was like the best year he had in his career. He had all the stuff, but they lost in that playoff game to the Chiefs. But anyways, Callahan, like, I don't know, man. I think he deserves another year. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think he deserves at least one more year. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think he's bad enough to, like, it's not like an Urban Meyer thing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, we gotta ask Ruben. Ruben, what do you think about the one and dones? Do you think it worked out for you guys, or do you think that's a dirty way to do it?
Here's the thing. When we hired Lovie Smith, when we hired David Culley, we all knew they were bridge guys. We all know they weren't the long-term solution.
Yep.
If you guys had conversations about whether or not Callahan is the long-term solution for the Tennessee Titans, then you have to give him more than 1 year. But I promise you, when it was the Houston Texans, no one wanted Lovie Smith. No one wanted David Culley. And, well, your situation is different because you got one of the hottest young offensive minds at the moment. Feel like you can't give up on him when he himself from the start did not believe in Will Levis.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I mean,
Right.
to answer the super chat too, like, I mean, it does bring up a great point. I mean, it does make a destination much more desirable when for a head coach that comes in. I mean, Ruben and I were just in this situation 2 years ago. I mean, why we got Shane Steichen, why we got D'Amico Ryans, because we're top 4 teams. We're likely going to get new quarterbacks, and you have a say in the direction that you would like to go with this organization, right? So that's kind of one of those things where it's like, obviously you don't wish for your team to tank. I mean, if Leon's wishing for his team to tank, that's fine. But I mean, you know very early whether or not your team's got it and whether or not they don't. And I mean, we see how it happens. It does make it a lot more interesting for coaching hires when your team is in that top 5 and has a lot more opportunities at the quarterback position to move things forward their way.
Yeah, we'll see. And Leon's got another one. He says, you will never convince me the Titans would be 3-10 with Mike Vrabel. Now, you guys were kind of forced to fire Mike Vrabel, right? It felt like he kind of gave up on y'all.
He got fired after we were in Tennessee and beat them last year with Case Keenum.
Yeah, I mean that. Look, that was the tip of the iceberg. Him wearing the stupid hat and the, all that stuff. Like, it was so ridiculous that game. And I think that was the tip in the iceberg, the nail in the coffin, so to speak. But yeah, I've seen a lot of this talk. I've seen a lot of this saying that we never had this record with Mike Vrabel. But let's not kid ourselves here too. The last 2 seasons with Mike Vrabel, he didn't win a lot of football games. Like, he was very, had the buddy system going on. All the assistant coaches were like his best friends. The offensive philosophy was absolutely terrible. And a lot of people were upset when they let go of Mike Vrabel, but I think even more people were excited that they let go of him because they wanted to evolve into today's NFL. You know what I mean? And like start becoming instead of being stuck in this 20-year cycle of run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. Eddie George, Derrick Henry, Eddie George, like, which is great. Like, Derrick Henry was absolutely phenomenal. But Derrick Henry needed to go. Like, there was nothing left for him here. You know what I'm saying? He's doing great in Baltimore. I'm glad he's there. But like the way they were running the offense, it was just kind of getting tiresome. I get why they tried to do what they did. Is it the right hire? That remains to be seen, but I say give the guy at least one more year because, like Ruben, like you said, like those guys, Lovie Smith, those were bridge coaches. Like the Titans bringing in Brian Callahan, they weren't thinking about this as a bridge thing. They're thinking
Exactly.
about this as like a future, for the future of the franchise.
So we'll see how it's conducted. So another $10 from Leon. Hey, it's a great show that there was some
Thank you,
super chats in
Leon.
here because we have one game to talk about. Okay, we do
Leon's
have
the
also
man.
in the
Carrying
show.
right now.
We do also have at the end of the show. We're gonna talk about basically our rookie classes. Just kind of check in on them, see how they're doing. I know it's mid-season, but we all might be a little curious. So Leon says the Titans will need to win out this season to match Vrabel's worst record with the Titans. And with all the new pieces we added in this past offseason, I think we would be closer to 10-3 with Vrabel. Wow. That's a take.
You might be right, Leon. I mean,
I
Is
don't.
that a
I
Vrabel
don't
burner?
think
Is
it's
that a-
that
is that a Vrabel
far-fetched.
burner?
I really don't think it's that far fetched. I mean, look, Vrabel. The problem is like we want to associate the Titans with how Vrabel ran the team because it was all about Derrick Henry for several years. Because unfortunately for Vrabel, that was the identity of the Tennessee Titans, and he had no say in the matter. He wasn't the one that drafted and got rid of AJ Brown. Like he didn't choose that. There's even the clips of of draft day when they traded him and he was walking away from the table. For a fact that man was regretting his life choices being in Tennessee the moment that move happened, because that was the one saving grace you had to be able to have a passing offense in Tennessee. The moment that happened, the offense for the Tennessee Titans died along with it. They have never even come close to anything good passing-wise since then, because you got rid of one of the best wide receivers in the game for no reason whatsoever. So, I mean, we could say whatever we want. Yeah, Vrabel probably gave up at the end because he probably knew his time was coming, and he didn't want to keep fighting for this because he knew that, they're barely hanging on. They're trying to make it to the playoffs, and they just don't make it because they're just that close because they don't have enough talent. And then the scapegoat is always the coach, right? Whenever the team just barely misses, the coach is the first guy that usually gets thrown under the bus because the team just didn't quite do enough. Yeah, and he probably got sick and tired of it. But I mean, the one thing you could never question about Vrabel is that when he got his guys prepared, he always had them willing to run through a brick wall for him. They always were willing to run through that brick wall for him.
I mean, even in Houston, they were saying Mike Vrabel, when he was a defensive assistant to defensive coordinator, they were saying this guy's going to be a head coach sometime.
Yeah, and it was kind of crazy to me that he got passed up this last cycle. I think teams just want to get the next big guy, and sometimes when you go with like a retread, I think it can be a little bit of a I don't know. I think a lot of teams just want the biggest, best guy as opposed to getting that retread. But I imagine Vrabel will be back this next offseason, this next coaching cycle, I should say. So with that said, guys, these streams are powered by BetUS. I do want to show some, different odds going on here before we get into our next segment. Of course, over here we have all kinds of different things to look at. When it comes to football stuff, this next football week, also college football, the college football playoffs, the first time we have a 12-team playoffs. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But one thing I want to scroll down to is that they actually have NFL regular season win futures. The Jaguars are not on here. I think they take the Jaguars off because they have basically 4 games left, and 3 of those games were against the Titans, the Raiders, and the Jets. So it's kind of hard to predict who's going to win those slot fests, but they do have Colts, Texans, and Titans over here. So right now, if you look at the Houston Texans, their over-under is at 9.5. And when you look at their current season, I mean, they're 8-5 right now. So they're predicting 1 or 2 more wins for the Houston Texans. Ruben, when you see this, how do you feel the Texans are going to finish out? You think they're going to hit the over on this?
Oh, for sure. I'm expecting a win against the Miami Dolphins, a bounce back win in week 18 against the Tennessee Titans, then whatever the hell happens between the Chiefs and Baltimore. But I feel like both teams are gettable. The Chiefs are doing black magic, and the Ravens are not who we think they are.
Man, I mean, we've yet to see Ruben pick against the Houston Texans, so I think asking him that question probably wasn't the most fair thing to do. Okay, so we have the Indianapolis Colts right now. Their over-under is at 8.5. If we look at the Colts are currently 6-7, so they're predicting 2 to 3 more wins for the Indianapolis Colts. Derek, how do you feel about this one?
Well, I would like to say that I think the Colts can do that, and obviously they need to do that in order to be able to have any chance to make the playoffs. Now, it would not surprise me at all if we hit the under on this. I'm gonna be dead straight with you. Say we don't beat Denver, I could totally imagine us losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 18 at home, because that's just how Gus Bradley is. He would somehow find a way to make your offense look like the greatest offense that's ever lived. But yeah, I would say over on this, because you gotta win all 4 in order to be able to make the playoffs at this point.
You see, I think the tricky thing about the Colts is that, like, once you're out on them, they pull you back in, and then once you're in, they disappoint you like crazy. Yeah. So
it's a continuous cycle every year.
And like right now, Anthony Richardson playing some decent football. You guys have a pretty easy rest of the schedule to be able to get into
beat the Broncos
after Denver. Denver.
I mean, after Denver, that's the big thing. If you guys can, and the thing that the Colts would do is they would somehow beat the Broncos and then go 1-2 in their last 3 games and lose to like the Jaguars and Titans. You know what I mean? It's
facts.
Very typical of the Colts.
I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
But hey, Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson, you guys have a chance to do something crazy for the Indianapolis Colts fan base, okay? If you guys can potentially, because I think for you guys to win the AFC South, you guys would either have to go 4-0 and the Texans would have to go 1-3, or you guys have to go 3-1 and the Texans go 0-4, which would be very difficult. But I think if you're eyeing the number 7 seed, you guys would have the straight up win against the Broncos. So that'll be a big one, but we'll have to see. When you look at it, Tennessee Titans over under 4.5 wins. They're currently 3-10. Rossi, where do you see you guys finishing on this one?
Let's see. What's the let me see here. So over 4.5, definitely not the over.
So
100% not the over. I mean, you gotta take the under, obviously. Like, I mean, what would be insane Ruben, like, it would be absolutely insane if somehow the Titans beat the Texans. Like, I think if I was a Texans fan, like, if the Titans that's the only game they win all for the rest of the season, like, I would be so freaking upset, dude. Like, if the Titans suck this bad this season and they end up somehow sweeping the Texans, man, I would just be irate which I don't think that's going to happen.
I think someone came up with a conspiracy theory to win these next 3 games, arrest your starters in Week 18, lose that one to, force Tennessee more farther from the number 1 pick.
Hey, I'm all about that. That's
you have my seal. But if I'm the Texans, dude, I'm not sitting my starter. Like, at least play some of them. Like,
of course not, bro. We're trying to get back our offensive identity. So these last 4 games, man, we're trying to get it back together.
So with that said, on BetUS, I'm gonna go ahead and put $10 on the Texans going over, $10 on the Indianapolis Colts going over 8.5, and Tennessee Titans under 4.5. If you guys are interested in doing any of this action, you guys can go to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit bonus. We appreciate them for sponsoring the show and honestly just making this show possible, guys. We would not be on here doing this show without BetUS, so we really do appreciate them. And I do want to go ahead and get into a little bit of, Colts, and I feel like we spent way too much time talking about the Tennessee Titans for some reason, but shout out to Leon with the super chats. Derek, when you look at the rest of the season, like we were kind of saying, the Colts, have a pretty tough game this weekend against the Denver Broncos, actually in Denver as well, which makes that one pretty tough. And then they finish off at home against the Titans, in New York against the Giants and at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, do you feel like do you feel pretty good about this upcoming schedule? And do you think that, I guess, give us a record prediction on how you think that the Colts will finish out?
Well, obviously, those last 3 games, the Colts would be favorited in every single one of those matchups because obviously you're going to be facing 3 teams that are in the bottom 6. So clearly, you have a step ahead of them. But again, it all comes down to this next game. This next game is your season, regardless of what happens. If you lose... If you lose to Denver, these last 3 games just don't matter. Honestly, there is very few opportunities that you would have. You could win out the final 3 games, but if you lose to Denver, you have to ensure that Denver would end up having to lose every single game after that in order to be able to have a chance. But even with that chance, you still probably wouldn't make it in because Denver would still have the head-to-head over you. So that would be an issue. So you lose this one, kiss the playoffs goodbye, and then, and people are starting to wonder if some jobs are on the line for the Indianapolis Colts, in particular, the one that puts the team together. So, I mean, it really ultimately comes down to it because facing the Tennessee Titans, facing the New York Giants, facing the Jaguars, I have a solid amount of confidence that the Colts can put those away. But it is this last game that is so important, or this next game that is so important, and it ultimately will determine how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah, and I think the Colts still have a lot to prove. I mean, when you actually look at their schedule, of course, they played 13 games, but only 1 win against a team with a winning record. So this is their opportunity, man. I mean, Denver, they're right in it, and they can't be no one's sleeping on Denver. They know the task at hand, and there's no excuses here. Go out there and beat them, or you're gonna sit at home with the Jaguars and Titans as we watch, unfortunately, the Texans play
second year
in the playoffs. And with that said, look, the Texans, of course, felt like at the end of last season had a lot of really, really good momentum, and they carried it into the beginning of the 2024 season. But I think it's been a little bit, sketchy maybe the last few weeks for the Houston Texans. Of course, they just came off of a 23-20 victory against the Jaguars. They're playing Miami this upcoming Sunday, but then at Kansas City, home against Baltimore, then at Tennessee, a team that they just lost to a few weeks ago. So, with that said, Ruben, how are you feeling about the final 4 games of the season?
My confidence is at a 6.5, 7. I know the defense could do its job. Our main concern, boys, is the offense, mainly the second half offense. Besides the game against Jacksonville, besides the game against the Patriots, in quarters 3 and 4, the Texans are averaging 6 points. They have 6 games this season, no touchdowns in the second half. And it's been an ongoing issue the entire year. What gives me belief that it's going to change now? Really not a lot. The only faith that I am putting in is the fact that you had a bye week just recently. We've been playing football, us and the Colts, since the preseason. So maybe this break is what the offense needed. Maybe it's what your quarterback needed to get it going. If this offense gets it going, guys, I feel like I can compete with anyone. I could beat anyone. But how many times have y'all heard me say that all throughout these live streams? And we just need to see this Houston Texans second half offense wakes up. They're 4th in quarters 1 and 2. And I don't know what the hell happens, as soon as halftime ends, but this team shuts down. So hopefully they get out of their second half woes and we start playing some pretty good football. Confidence is at a 6.5, 7 UCF.
Yeah, so when we actually take a look at the playoff bracket right now, like if the season ended today type of deal, this is what it looks like. The Texans would actually be hosting the 8-5 Baltimore Ravens. So
we know what happened last time.
Yeah, 0-. Are you good, Derek? Are you good, bro?
We know what happened last time.
And of course, we have a preview potentially of that game in a couple of weeks. We'll really see how the Texans shape up against them and see how they look because, the Texans, they've been putting away, the Jaguars who suck. They put away the Colts who suck, but we'll see. And look, they've beaten the Bills. They played it pretty close with the Lions, so they can definitely hang around against these teams that are really good. But hey, man, I think the Texans are basically in the playoffs, but I don't think that's really the question. I think it's, hey, last season, we were just happy to be here, but now it's all about, hey, now that we're here, we're going to come back and now we're going to make some noise. So that's kind of still to be seen from the Houston Texans. Of course, did you guys, I know we spoke about it before, was any changes made in the bye week? Any nothing. So Slowick's still the guy, and we're going to roll with that.
Yeah, Nick Caserio went out in press conference and said absolutely not when it comes to change at play caller. He said he believes in Bobby Slowick. Okay, fine. You're the GM. There's a reason why I'm here in front of a camera on a gaming chair. So we're just going to trust the GM, trust that this coaching staff figures it out. And if not, we're going to have to be looking for a new play caller next year.
All right, so I do want to transition into this next segment. I want to go and talk about the 2024 NFL draft, and really just go and talk about how our rookie classes are doing. And we'll go around the table. I guess since I brought it up, I'll go ahead and start. The Jaguars this last draft came away basically with Brian Thomas Jr. as a top pick. And we've all loved Brian Thomas Jr. He's well on his way to having a 1,000-yard season. It just feels like the Jaguars are not using him nearly enough, unfortunately. And, man, if we just found a way to keep feeding him, he would just be so much better. But the hope is that we bring a new offensive or new head coach in here, new offensive system, and everything gets clicking to where he's more of a focal point, in this offense, because the Jaguars, they didn't score in the first half last week. They didn't start scoring points until they started targeting him. Okay, and he had 85 yards in the second half. It's just, I don't know why he's not a part of the game plan, but he's extremely special. And while we're talking about rookie classes, this is actually a pretty good week for the Jaguars rookie class. Mason Smith, the Jaguars second-round pick, defensive tackle out of LSU, had himself a really good game, and he spent a lot of time inactive this season, but now he's starting to get some playing time, and he's a big dude in the middle of the field that should be able to be a building block going forward. Jarian Jones had his best game as an NFL pro. Lots of pass breakups. He had himself a sack as well on a blitz. Good game from him. Haven't seen much out of Javon Foster or Jordan Jefferson. Trey Prince, a cornerback, has had a little bit of play with some injury. Keelan Robinson finally was active after being hurt this whole entire season. He's a running back. He only played kick return for the Jaguars, and the Jaguars drafted Cam Little, who has been an excellent kicker for the Jaguars. I think he's only missed 2 field goals this season, so it's been a really good year on that aspect. So we can go ahead and go to Titans Rossi. Rossi, let us know, I guess, how the Tennessee Titans rookie class is looking.
Man, the chat is buck wild, man. It's freaking. I love our viewers, man. But anyways, so yeah, the Titans draft class is actually pretty good. Like, that's the thing. Rand Carthon, a lot of people are praising him over this draft class. Like, if that's something you could hang your hat on as a Titans fans. Like, you look at J.C. Latham, the tackle, out of Bama. Like, he's struggled in some games, but for the most part, he's held up pretty well as a left tackle. I think you could have your career, your franchise left tackle in the future there. Tavondre Sweat. I mean, Sweat has been one of the best rookie defensive tackles in the league. One of the best nose tackles in the league as far as rookies goes. He even ranks up there and just, out of all players. So he's been absolutely a surprise and awesome. Cedric Gray, the linebacker, he was on injured reserve. He just now starting to play. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the cornerback out of Louisville, the 5th-round pick. He's been playing fantastic for being a 5th-round pick. He's been forced into the starting role for over 8 or 9 weeks now, since L'Jarius Sneed is nowhere to be found. And Brownlee has played great considering. So you got a guy there who's a really potential starter, potential, solid backup. Jaquan Jackson, the wide receiver out of Tulane, he got benched. He fumbled 5 punt returns so far. So there you go there. James Williams out of Miami, he's somebody that hasn't got to play a lot. Then Jalen Harrell, the defensive end outside linebacker haven't seen a lot of him. But I mean, look, if you're talking about a draft class that's contributed and you've got 3 or 4 guys out of that class that's been pretty darn good, like you can't be mad at that.
All right. Ruben, we can move on to you, man.
Yeah, so out of the mini draft picks, the Houston Texans had 3 7th-round picks. We haven't seen either of those guys. Jahar Jordan, our 6th-round pick, he got hurt, and we haven't seen our 6th-round pick, Jamal Hill. But our top picks, 2 of them should be in conversation or should have their little model right next to the defensive rookie of the year. And one of them is Kamari Lassiter, your cornerback out of Georgia. He has 3 interceptions on the season. He is the cornerback 2 next to Derek Stingley. And, man, he's been playing fantastic all year. There were a lot of concerns about his 4.5 speed, but we haven't seen, that really affect Kamari Lassiter at all. He has been balling out, man, and he brings a swagger to the Houston Texans defense. Someone else in the secondary, our safety, Kalen Bullock out of UFC. He is a ball hawk, 4 interceptions on the year. He is only going to get better. Our secondary took a huge step forward depth-wise, youth-wise. Our other 2nd-round pick, Derek Fisher, our offensive tackle, right or left. We haven't seen him play any significant football with our 2 tackles, Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. We did have a 1st-round pick, but we traded that back to go ahead and get Stephon Diggs. Unfortunately, we know how that worked out for him with torn ACL. But outside of the draft class, man, only Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock have made significant impact for this Houston Texans defense, and they have a bright future ahead of them.
All right, Derek, we'll end it with you.
Yeah, I mean, this has definitely been a very interesting draft class for Indianapolis. You take the first defensive player in the draft with Laiatu Latu, 15th overall, has actually led the team in pressures this year by a defensive lineman. So, definitely something to look forward to. The sack numbers aren't entirely there, but he is getting a lot of consistent pressure, even with the fact that he's not an every down rusher right now. So definitely looking forward to continue to see what happens with him. Adonai Mitchell, dude, I tell you what, that was one of the biggest roller coasters that I have ever seen this season. Adonai Mitchell,
more than Anthony Richardson.
No, dude, he was killing people in training camp, dude. Like, he made everyone look like idiots. I mean, he was out there destroying every cornerback that he faced. Even in the joint practices, no one could guard him. And then in this season, he's been non-existent. He has been non-existent. Again, a lot of it has had to do with the quarterback play, both with Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco. Also has had something to do with the fact that he's dropped a lot of passes this year. And there were even question marks about, whether or not he's willing to put his body on the line for certain catches, because I can't remember which game it was, but there's a couple catches where he could have dove for the catch, but he opted to not dive into what would have been a bang play and just let the ball go incomplete. And then you have people questioning whether or not, Adonai Mitchell is already making business decisions out here rather than just going out and, just making the play when it's there. So, the verdict is still out on Adonai Mitchell right now. The 2 offensive linemen they drafted, Matt Gonsalves and Tanner Bortolini, studs. I mean, they have done some great things, and they've had to play a lot this year because of all the injuries to the Colts offensive line this year. And Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves, they very well could be future starting pieces for this offensive line at some point in the near future when some of these pieces are going to eventually be gone. Because at some point you got to stop paying everyone in your offensive line and start making some tough decisions. And I think Ryan Kelly's going to be gone here within the next year and a half. And I think Braden Smith might be on the way out too. So that could very well be your next 2. It could be your next center and right tackle spots. Outside of that, there's been nothing for you. The back end of your draft class, I mean, Gould, we thought he was going to be this special teams ace, and, we thought he was going to do all these great things. It's been a healthy scratch all year long because he can't hold on to the football. Jalen Carlisle, he's been injured a lot. I really hope we get him back soon so that way we can see more of what he's got. But outside of that, everybody else on the back end of your draft, you cut everyone. So, I mean, Chris Ballard ended up cutting at least a good solid 30% of his draft class before they even made it out of training camp. So,
all right. Well, we'll see how all that ends up. And with that said, that is today's show, everybody. Remember, guys, on Thursday or Friday, they keep changing up the days or putting it out on me, but we will preview the next week's upcoming games. Got a lot of pretty good games coming up, so definitely hope that you guys can join us over there. And guys, be sure on your way out, please do us a favor and drop a like on the stream, okay? That definitely helps us out. That keeps the show going because we want this show to go on forever and ever and ever, okay? And for you guys to, help us out, all you have to do is drop a like. It's that easy. So YouTube will throw the algorithm. So if you're a Colts fan, Titans fan, whatever, you can discover this show out there on your YouTube home platform. And also, guys, want to give a big shout out to BetUS for powering the stream. Like I said, 150% deposit bonus using promo code YouTube150. Thank you guys all so much, and we will see you guys later this week.